What's up guys, Rick, Moon's Haunted Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today, Bungie just released a big, beautiful, bodacious, brand new Shadowkeep Vidoc, showcasing new gameplay, new information on Shadowkeep, and the content beyond. And so in this video, we're going to break it down, look at some screenshots, some things that appear for just a couple of milliseconds, but unveil some really important and really cool stuff about Destiny 2's next big expansion. And I apologize for being a little bit late with this info. I was working on some other stuff at Reset, but remember, I'm not trying to win a race here. I'm trying to make the most detailed video I can, and I think there's some really cool stuff that we're gonna go over. So let's get started. Starting us off, we have a cool area here, likely one of the new strikes. It's kind of a mix of Vex stuff and Taken stuff. Moving on from there, the next interesting thing is this Titan fighting this Ogre in what looks to be the Solarium on Titan. Now, if you go there, this Ogre is clearly not present. So this showcases that they're updating some of the existing locations with Shadowkeep. And this could show us that similar to wanted enemies with Forsaken, there's going to be some new Shadowkeep enemies thrown into, again, these existing areas, which is really sweet. Then we have two Guardians clashing swords. This is unlikely to be a new mechanic or anything like that. This is probably just one of those dual emotes, but it's one of the better ones I've seen. Then we have a Guardian on Nessus using an absolutely bonkers looking jet engine style Sparrow. Like, that thing looks crazy. Then we have some new footage of the Black Garden, and this is interesting because it looks like kind of a contained space. This could either be a raid encounter, or I would say more likely the Black Garden activity, the Vex offensive activity that's launching alongside the new raid with Shadowkeep. Remember, the Black Garden is not just the home for the new raid, it also has the seasonal activity taking place in it as well. Then we have a Guardian using what appears to be the brand new exotic machine gun that we've seen several times before, but this is actually a little bit more gameplay with it, and we can see that it appears to be shooting quite slowly, and this would back up the claims coming out of PAX that this exotic machine gun was actually like 150 rounds per minute, so similar to a hand cannon, and did a phenomenal amount of damage, like 150 damage to the head on another Guardian, which is crazy. Also, something really interesting involving this machine gun is coming up later in the video. But next up, we have a little bit of quick gameplay with the exotic Monte Carlo auto rifle returning from Destiny 1, where it improves your melee. Then good old Crota from Destiny 1 remade and standing in the same location you killed him in the Crota's End raid. So does this mean the Crota's End raid is returning? Unlikely, but it does seem to indicate that certain areas from Crota's End are going to be added to at least the moon map, or specific missions or nightmare hunts or whatever, but some of that raid content is going to be appearing with Shadowkeep. We have this inventory screen here. As you can see down at the bottom, we have that new exotic machine gun we just looked at, and an exotic harpy ghost. Remember the symbol on that harpy ghost, that is the seasonal, like Season of the Undying symbol, and that means it's associated with that, not necessarily the Shadowkeep expansion. We then get a quick look at this bond and some mods for it. So the insulation mod is something that's returning. Notably, it's only going to cost 1 energy this time. And something that also costs 1 energy is a new one that we haven't seen before, which is Healthy Finisher. Finishers heal you, requires 1/10 of your super energy. So whenever you perform a finisher, you're going to gain some health back, and again, it's going to cost your super energy, and that super energy cost is something that all finisher mods seem to share and is the balancing factor for them. Next up, if you look at this background monitor, we see a new Vanguard themed auto rifle right here. Now, what could this be? Well, normally you'd say, oh, well, this is just the new Vanguard gear for the new season, for the new expansion. But Bungie has actually said they're not updating those loot pools, so maybe they reconsidered. Maybe this is a brand new pinnacle weapon. Maybe this is a totally different weapon with a Vanguard skin, although that seems unlikely because it probably wouldn't have the Vanguard symbol on it. Interestingly, this is almost an exact reskin of the Destiny 1 Vanguard auto rifle, the answering cord pictured here. And if that weapon is returning in Destiny 2, it should belong to the slower firing 450 RPM archetype. Next up, we have this screen here, and interestingly, all of these weapons share a theme, which likely means they're from the same loot pool. Both the Titan in the background and the Hunter in the foreground have the same weapon on the Hunter's back and that the Titan is using. That's the exact same weapon, it appears. And then the Warlock in the front has an auto rifle, but very similar design, kind of white with that gold highlights. Now, we actually know that these weapons aren't exotic because the Hunter is using an exotic hand cannon that we do know about, so they are legendary, and if they're legendary, they're all from the same loot pool. Perhaps this is a look at the raid weapons. And the very next scene, we see this Warlock shooting a gun that has the same basic frame as the No Time to Explain exotic pulse rifle from Destiny 1. So is that returning? Well, no. And we actually have pretty definitive proof what this actually is, and that's coming from this image here from the official Shadowkeep website. And we can see that exact same pulse rifle here. It's clearly covered in like grass and foliage, and when we look at the lightened up version when this Guardian is actually shooting, we see that same kind of grass, foliage, mold, whatever exactly it is. So that's pretty clearly the same gun, and these kind of Black Garden themed weapons are probably going to be the seasonal weapons from that Vex offensive activity. Next up, something cool that was talked about is that some of these new Shadowkeep weapons, you can see the Shadowkeep symbol on them glowing red. Well, apparently those will glow and then die down based on how close you are to nightmares, which is kind of the bosses you're facing, the main enemies you're facing in that brand new Nightmare Hunt activity taking place on the moon, which is a sweet feature. Then we see this really sweet looking exotic rocket launcher. We actually know the name, the Deathbringer, and coming out of PAX West, we also know one of the exotic perks. It's Dark Deliverance, fires remotely detonated projectiles that drop void orbs on enemies, hold to fire, and release fire to detonate. Next up, there's something really awesome. Remember in older Vidocs when Bungie said that the Chalice was a huge success, people loved it and they want to do more of them? Well, they're actually going to implement a brand new Chalice style system in Shadowkeep. We don't have to wait any longer, and it's showcased right here, this Lectern of Enchantment. And Luke Smith said,
you're going to build a bunch of cool rewards, and then, if you don't get rolls that you like, you're going to go back to the rune table and you're going to make more.
So, not getting rewards, but building rewards. Having this rune table where you can get more if you're unhappy with a certain role. That sounds like we have some degree of control over our loot drops. Perhaps you're going to be able to specify not necessarily the role you're getting, but at least the weapon. Again, similar to the Chalice in Season of Opulence. That's very much what it sounds like. I hope that's the case because the Chalice was so darn awesome. But regardless, this is a very interesting look at where we're going to be going quite a bit in Shadowkeep. This Lectern of Enchantment is basically the Ada 1 of Shadowkeep. It's where you're going to go get these bounties, get this new material, as you can see, and then get the new Shadowkeep legendaries that we've seen several times. Moving on from there, we see Bungie writing on a whiteboard and kind of planning out what's coming, not only in Shadowkeep, but in the months and years after Shadowkeep. So we can see right here, name, it says Undying, Season of the Undying. The player fantasy is Damn the Flood, like stop the massive Vex invasion from the Black Garden. And then in this screen here, if we look closer, we can see in that same power fantasy we have for the Season of Dawn, which we do know that's confirmed by Bungie to be the season after Season of the Undying. It says fix the timeline. So we know the Vex can manipulate time, hence the Vault of Glass raid. So possibly you're fixing what they did within the events of Shadowkeep, or some people have thought, well, fix the timeline. What also messed up the timeline? Killing Riven, the Ahamkara, within the Dreaming City with the Last Wish raid. And there is actually a little bit of lore that says go back in and solo the Shadowed Throne dungeon at 999 light, which is actually achievable due to the fact that the seasonal artifact actually does not have a power cap. As long as you're getting experience, you're going to get power levels for that seasonal artifact, and it can go infinitely. So you can reach 999, and you can go in as 999 into the Shadowed Throne. So that's going to be really interesting. But if I can also draw your attention up to the top of the whiteboard, it says like seen or something and then deleted, but it says at the very top, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7. 7 years of Destiny 2? I mean, we're just starting year 3 with Shadowkeep, so that is 5 more years of Destiny 2. If this whiteboard is to be believed, that's what Bungie is saying. They're going to support Destiny 2 for 5 more years. And that's insane. Now, it is entirely possible for one of these years they write Destiny 3. And this is just overall years of support for Destiny as a franchise. But wouldn't that be written down as Destiny 3 year 1, not year 7 of Destiny 2? Just saying. But I think it's a little bit hard to go off of. Obviously, Bungie doesn't necessarily know exactly what they're going to do in 3 years from now. However, I think what you can absolutely say from this part of the whiteboard is Bungie is hinting to us that Destiny 2 isn't going anywhere. And whereas Activision may have tried to kind of force their hand with Destiny 3, Bungie is saying, no, we're going to stick around, we're going to stick with Destiny 2 and support it for multiple more years. So I don't think Destiny 3 is out of the question, but it definitely may come a little bit later than some people may have thought. Then we quickly see some of the new Shadowkeep emotes or Season of the Undying emotes. And then we actually have something pretty cool because this screenshot here is a max power level Guardian essentially, because you can look at the Eye of the Gatelord seasonal artifact and it says there's 12 unlocks in total. They have all 12 unlocked and the power bonus is plus 56. Well, we actually know that the gear bonus in terms of power level stops at power 960. So 960 plus 56 is actually 1016, which is what you see this Guardian is right here. And again, it showcases that you can go beyond 999 and just keep going from your seasonal artifact. Next, we have another kind of blink and you'll miss it moment. This is actually a brand new linear fusion rifle being worked on. I can kind of read, it says something underscore linear underscore fusion underscore rifle name. It's clearly still in development, but this is one of the brand new pieces of loot coming to the game. Really interestingly though, if you look even closer, we have 2 different choices between perks and then 3 perks after that. Now immediately, you'll be saying, wait a minute, 3 perks after that? Isn't it normally 2 perks after that? Now maybe this is the Masterwork slot where you can choose between PvP kills and PvE kills, but you can clearly see that this gun is not Masterwork. There's no glowing gold around it. So are there going to be guns with unique perks? This could be, I hate to say it, but this could be a raid gun, and finally, raid guns could be getting additional raid-specific intrinsic perks back like all of them had in Destiny 1. That is super exciting if it's true, but of course, we can tell by the name, this is still a work in progress. Perhaps that's just a development bug or something extra. I really hope it is an additional raid perk though. Then we have another blink and you'll miss it moment. We have the different rewards for the Nightfalls coming with Shadowkeep. So we can see Nightfall, the Ordeal, there's Adept, Hero, Legend, and Master. And you can see from the Legend Power 950 Nightfall, it has a ton of different modifiers. Oh my goodness, a ton. And the rewards, it says Exotic Gear, Common. So what does that mean? Exotic Gear Common. Could Common be just year 1 stuff? And then Uncommon is the new Shadowkeep stuff? Potentially. We also have Enhancement Prisms, which is interesting. And then we very quickly see the top Master difficulty, which is the recommended power 980. So you will have to be investing in your seasonal artifact to be able to get there. Even more modifiers, insane modifiers. Again, we have Exotic Gear, we have Enhancement Prisms, and then we have Ascendant Shards, Uncommon. So Ascendant Shards are actually the thing you need to upgrade your armor. We saw during the armor stream that to 100% get your armor 2.0 to the top energy tier so you can put on as much and the most powerful mods as you can that would cost Ascendant shards. So that's how you get them, and that is no joke if that's how you get them. By the way, we have this gameplay here of a guy just shooting an enemy with a scout rifle. Notably, this is in the kinetic slot and it belongs to the faster like scorpion damage archetype, and that's the first archetype we've had of the scout in kinetic. Then another blink and you'll miss it moment, we have an Overload Minotaur, and this is actually in the location of one of the strikes on Mercury, right? The A Garden World strike, and that would indicate what I talked about earlier when we saw that ogre in the solarium, that there's different enemies, again similar to wanted enemies, put throughout existing content. In this case, an older strike is going to have that Overload Minotaur. Guess what? Very next screen, exact same thing. We have an Unstoppable Ogre. It's called something definitely new, and this is in the Savathun's Song strike. So those old strikes, they're getting something a little new. Then we have something that initially piqued my interest, but then I did a little bit more digging and realized exactly what it was. We have this Warlock utilizing a Rift ability, class ability, and then killing all the enemies around them. Now it appears that they're using the Vesper of Radius exotic chess piece, and that's exactly what that does. You cast it on the ground and it hurts enemies nearby. But then we have all this red lightning. Is that this exotic getting buffed? I don't actually think so. I hope it does get buffed, but if we look at an earlier screenshot from killing those nightmare enemies, you actually see that red lightning again, and this has nothing to do with the Vesper of Radius. So I think that's just an effect added when you kill those nightmare enemies. Alright, next up, this is super interesting. The calendar they show in this Vidoc is actually different than the one they released in the last weekly update. Check it out. This is the last one. And you can see on the 29th, we have the exotic quest for the Divinity Trace Rifle. But this is the brand new one in the Vidoc, and as you can see, the 29th, it's no longer the Divinity, it's the Xenophage, and it now shows that machine gun we looked at earlier. So this is really interesting because the Divinity, when it was kind of unveiled at PAX, it was part of the loot of the raid, and people thought, oh, this is the raid exotic, but then it appeared in this timeline, and it was an exotic quest way after the raid came out, and people thought, well, what's going on here? But now we see the Xenophage take its place, so it is way more likely the Divinity is the raid exotic, and now we have that machine gun from that exotic quest. And lastly, I want to leave you guys with this statement from Bungie director Luke Smith.
Forsaken broke a bunch of the bones that we had set, with Destiny 2. What we've been able to do this year is reset them. Are we done? No, not even close.
Are we done? Not even close. That is what I want to hear, and that is just phenomenal news. It really looks like independent bungo is the best bungo. I've been saying it for a while. The future is looking bright for this game. That statement combined with the whiteboard where they're saying we are supporting this game potentially for years going forward, that's crazy. Great news and great time to be a Destiny fan. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.